Hi, and welcome back to the Now What Summit. And I am here with Courtney Flessner, Assistant Director of the Keep Indiana Learning team. And Courtney, I think you're going to push me out of my comfort zone today. I've gotten to see your slides and I am ready to learn something. So with that said, you're going to talk about the importance of having strong math content knowledge, whether you're teaching kindergartners or calculus to 12th graders, that it doesn't matter the strategy, you have to have solid content knowledge.
That's right. You got it, Marty. You're going to learn a lot in the next 30 minutes.
Sounds awesome. So take it away.
Okay, cool. So like Marty said, I am here today to talk specifically about mathematical content knowledge in the thinking classroom. And what is so cool about building thinking classrooms is that it is really bringing on these pedagogical approaches to teaching that are they're transformative. However, if you don't have content knowledge to back up those pedagogical practices, you're going to hit a wall. So I want to talk a little bit about that today. So the first thing, let me see. Okay, so the first thing that we're looking at here is what is mathematical knowledge for teaching? Now, I learned all about this when I was working on my grad school work at IU, and I was like, oh, mathematical knowledge, that sounds so interesting. And there's all these different areas and all these different things make up the mathematical knowledge. You've got subject matter knowledge, and then you've got pedagogical content knowledge. But and what I've done on these slides is I've put in like a quick definition of them so that everyone can see, and it's cited. So if you want to read the academic article, you can. And we'll put these slides in the show notes so that you have better access to them. I'm not going to read out loud from them, but basically there's a lot of different knowledge. You can know how to do math, but knowing the math that you're teaching, those are two really different things. And oftentimes that also ties into your pedagogical approaches. So that we can go way deep into this, but mostly I just wanted to know that this information is out there, and it's something that people are constantly thinking about and studying and working on with teachers, because the pedagogy is so important, but so is the content. So on this next slide I wrote, the bottom line is we need to know what we are teaching. We need to know why we're teaching it, and we need to know how to teach it best so that every child has an opportunity to learn. That content knowledge is grounded in what is the math, and also how is that math connected to everything that's coming up and everything that they've done before. Okay. And in our building thinking classrooms, we need to know this so that we can ask the right questions, we can create autonomy and things like that. So moving in, this is my slide. I was really excited about the graphics. So everybody enjoy those with me along with you. But this is what I was just talking about. A lot of times on like the Facebook group pages and other places in social medias, I see a lot of questions about thin slicing. And people want tasks, these great thinking tasks with the thin slicing already available to them. Okay, that's great. Let's say you find a great task, the thin slicing is already available to you. But if you're fostering autonomy and asking great questions to give children the opportunity to continue working and thinking on their own, you need to know why the problem was thin sliced the way it was. It can't just be handed out to them and let them go and sit there and do nothing. That is not what Peter is asking us to do in his book. We need to know why the thin slicing task is designed as it is. And then in consolidation, if we are selecting student work to look at our vertical non-permanent surfaces, we're doing a gallery walk around the room, you need to know, what are you looking for in that consolidation? How are you going to sequence that gallery walk? What are you pointing out? Knowing the content is making that possible for you. So it's really, really, really important to keep on thinking about how the content knowledge is impacting your thin slicing, fostering autonomy, and the consolidation that you're doing in your room. And then on top of that, as we are helping kids move up to explaining and justifying and teaching and creating, if we want to be able to guide them through that process that Peter talks about in his book, we need to know the content too. So what I wanted to do was talk a little bit about a content piece that blew my mind for many years, and that is dividing fractions. And I have to give like a shout out to people in my life. I would literally be making dinner thinking about how does this traditional US algorithm of keep, change, flip work? I didn't understand it. I didn't know why it worked. I didn't really understand division of fractions. And in what I do for a living, working with teachers and teaching math, it really didn't seem okay for me to not have a solid foundation, a solid understanding of how that works. So as I'm sitting here talking about know your content, know that sometimes that's going to take a little while. It's going to, you're going to need to see how do kids solve problems? What are they doing? Taking notice of that, asking yourself some questions and going through that process. This particular process is years in the making for me, really, and with a ton of guidance from my husband, Ryan, who does this exact same work. And me often asking the same questions over and over and over again, and him understanding the content so well that he knew what kinds of questions to ask me, what kinds of manipulatives to get out, what kinds of pictures to draw in order to help me understand it. He didn't just tell me, right? And that's what we're trying to do here with kids. So let's look at this slide. We've got 2/3 divided by 3/4. And oftentimes you'll see people say, just keep change and flip and you'll have the answer. Just keep change and flip. And I'll see TikToks are like, here's the magical way to solve the problem on when you're dividing fractions, but it's a lot deeper than that. So no, we actually don't want to start with just keep, change, and flip, because that is simply not thinking. If we tell kids in order to divide fractions and get the right answer, here's what you do, they're not doing any thinking, they're mimicking, they're following procedures. Is the goal to get them there? Absolutely yes, but it's not where we want them to be right off the bat. So let's kind of walk through this a little bit. I'm first showing you 2 divided by, I keep saying 2 divided by 3. 2/3 is 2 divided by 3, but that's not the content we're talking about today. 2/3 divided by 3/4 can also be written as 2/3 divided by 3/4 as a fraction. A lot of people will say, no. You can't put a fraction in the numerator. You can't put in the denominator. You can. It's called a complex fraction. So the first thing that we need kids to understand is that this is something that you can do. Okay, this is a way that you can represent division of fractions. Then we need to start thinking about how are we going to connect this concept now to prior knowledge. And here's all that's happening. Once we've established that we can write an example of dividing fractions in this form, we can start connecting it to this prior knowledge. So in order for them to be able to successfully understand keep, change, flip, and this traditional algorithm, this traditional US algorithm, they fully need to understand these concepts: multiplication of fractions, identity property of division, a number divided by itself is 1, and the identity property of multiplication. All of these things are taught prior to this traditional algorithm. These are all prerequisite skills to being able to think through why are we dividing fractions in this traditional way. Okay, I'm having trouble right now because I want to pause and be like, who has questions? But I know I can't do that because we're live. So I'm moving right along. So now let's first look at this. Our goal here is to get a denominator of 1, okay? Because a number divided by 1 is that number. So first, we're going to multiply the fraction in the denominator by its inverse, okay? So here you see that we're multiplying the denominator by its inverse. And in order to do that, children need to know how to multiply fractions, okay? And we're doing this because it will give us 1 in the denominator. So you'll see in my graphic here, we've got 3/4 times 4/3 equals 12/12. What does that do? It gives us 1 in the denominator, okay? Next, we can't leave the numerator empty. Okay, that's a whole other problem that we're not talking about. We're talking about division of problems. So traditionally, we tell kids, whatever you do to the denominator, you also do to the numerator. Okay, yes, but it's a little bit deeper than that, right? Because we're not following procedures, we're doing some thinking. Okay, so what we're trying to do is to get the second factor of this expression to be 1. We need it to say 2/3 divided by 3/4 times 1. That's what we're going for here. So what we can do is we can apply the identity property of multiplication by making it be times 1. In order to do that, that is when we are going to multiply the numerator by 4/3. Okay? There's a lot going on the screen. We're going to break it down a little bit. But so far, we've multiplied fractions. We understand a number divided by itself is 1. We've got that going on. And now we've got 4/3 divided by 4/3. That is going to equal 1. And we also know now that 2/3 times 3/4 or divided by 3/4 times 1 is showing us that identity property of multiplication. So what we've done here is we're just creating ones. We're not doing keep, change, flip. We're creating ones because of all the things we know about identity properties, about what happens when you divide a number by 1, what happens when you multiply a number by 1, a number divided by itself is 1. This is a very one heavy algorithm, right? And so now our second factor is 1. Now, when we move on, by just applying this prior knowledge of the identity properties of multiplication of fractions, we can successfully show how keep, change, flip actually works by finally considering the identity property of division. So now I have shown this as 2/3 times 4/3 divided by 12/12 is the same as 2/3 times 4/3 divided by 1. Okay, and we know that any number divided by 1 is itself, right? And any expression, that answer divided by 1 is going to be our answer. Ultimately, we're going to come up with our final answer of 8/9. And that is all represented here. Okay, it's a lot of steps. And then the last thing that I wanted to show you in terms of all of these steps is we've got 2/3 times 4/3 divided by 1 is the same as 2/3 times 4/3, which equals 8/9. So what that all comes down to is 2/3 divided by 3/4 is the same as 2/3 times 4/3 is the same as 8/9. Okay, so it's not just about keep, change, flip. It's going through this process and allowing children the opportunity to think about what they already know and apply those skills to truly understanding division of fractions allows for them to continue to use these skills as they move on into more sophisticated algebraic skills and beyond. And that's part of the content knowledge, not just knowing your grade level content, but what knowledge are they coming to you with? And where is this going? Why do I need to teach it? Keep, change, flip isn't just about the right answer to a division problem. That's a perk, right? We're going to get the correct answer. But all of that math that's being done and all of the thinking that the kids are doing is actually this incredible opportunity for them to fully understand why the algorithm works and then be able to move on into life being like, what can I do to get 1? What can I do to get 1? Because they will learn through this algorithm that 1 is awesome. Okay, so that content is so, so, so important for us to know. So this is my last slide. So I can do keep, change, flip, and I'll have the answer, and I understand why. It's so much more than right answer. I really do kind of refer to it as being like the right answer is the perk to all this great, great thinking. Our ultimate goal is efficiency, okay? But efficiency without understanding why isn't going to help them apply it to concepts later on, okay? So you need to know that content so you can help them through that thinking process. So some things to consider: know your content, know what you are teaching. You got to know why. Why are you teaching it? What should students know before learning the new concept? And how will that concept help them succeed later? And if you're not sure, if you know the what and the why, ask for help. Talk to your other teachers about it. You are not alone. Lots of people are sitting around thinking, I don't know why I'm doing this, but I'm supposed to teach it. So here I go. Take some time to do the math and think about it. Like I said, I paused while I was making dinner, drew some pictures to try to understand why division and fractions worked. Okay. And in doing this, by focusing on those ideas, this will help you thin slice. It will help you ask questions. It will help you prepare for gallery walks during consolidation. It's going to create autonomous thinkers and learners, and it's going to give you confidence in your teaching. You don't want to say, I don't know why I'm doing this. I'm supposed to. Let me take that back. Maybe you do. But your kids are really going to benefit from you really, really, really knowing the content, and give yourself some grace and give yourself some time and learn it, right? This is one example of a lot of things out there. All right. Now, like I mentioned before, I think we can tie these slides into the show notes. I'm pretty sure Marty said that we could do that. So what I did here was I included some resources to help you grow your mathematical content knowledge. There's lots out there, but one of the big things that we have are Keep Indiana Learning Big Math Ideas and Progression documents. We've got second edition that's going to be new and improved coming out in 2024. Even if you aren't a teacher in Indiana, the progression documents are an awesome tool for you to really understand the where are they coming from and where is this going idea. There's lots of them available and more coming in 2024. There's also the Partnership for Inquiry Learning Math Standards videos. These were published through the Partnership for Inquiry Learning and the IDOE. There's 50 content videos on Indiana state standards, and these will be aligned to the new Indiana standards in the fall of 2023. But even if you're not an Indiana teacher, you will find a lot of really good ideas and resources in these videos. There's also some for reading, but we're not talking about reading today. There's also the book called Understanding the Math We Teach and Why We Teach It. Book is like this thick, but you can literally just go to, what do I want to learn about? Like I was looking up rules for divisibility, like why is that the divisibility? Like, why does that rule work for when we're finding what's divisible by 3 or whatever? And it explains it in that book. So it is a great resource to have at your fingertips as you're trying to understand things a little bit more. And then Math Matters is another book just like that. Not quite as thick as Understanding the Math We Teach, but also a pretty thick book. Math Matters might be a tiny little bit cheaper too. And then the last one is us here at Keep Indiana Learning. We have spent so much time understanding the content and working on what is this content and why are we teaching it, that we can help you. So reach out to us when you have questions or when you need extra help with that, because we are here to help you in any way. So content knowledge, it's not just about how we're teaching, it's about the what and the why. Knowing the what and why is going to help you so much with your pedagogy.
Oh, Courtney, my mind is blown. I actually admitted to you earlier today, I don't think I knew what keep, change, flip was. Well, now I know what it was, but now I also know why lots of years removed from 3rd grade or whenever it was, that it made no sense to me, that I didn't even know that I knew that. But watching that thinking, oh, well, that made it all make sense. And so then now I feel like, oh, I could do other more complicated problems because I have a nicer framework to build off of, not just some random words of this is why I do this.
Yeah. And it's not magic. It's not about, my husband called it when he was first teaching, this was his big aha, sprinkling fairy dust and flipping the second fraction. Like there's no fairy dust, right. Like there's a reason for that math,
right. Right.
And so the fairy dust might be fun. And it might be a fun phrase, but let's talk about why the fairy dust works, Right. And so, and it's in really, I think that you're actually, Marty, when we were talking earlier and you were like, I don't know if I've heard of keep, change, flip. And you said, if you were dividing that, you would change them into decimals. Mm-hmm. That's fascinating to me. And that's your go-to strategy. And that's great. Right. But somewhere along the way, I'm sure you were taught how to divide fractions without changing them to decimals. And
Right.
so I can't help but to wonder if you had truly understood that, if you would be able to talk about it later on in life, even though you were an English teacher and not a math teacher. So
Right.
I like to believe you could.
And as I thought about what I told you that I would change it to decimals, I was sitting here thinking, as I was listening to you talk through that, that's a perfectly fine strategy for that problem. But had you thrown 5/8 divided by, I don't know, 7/6 or some
Yeah.
such thing, now my decimal strategy would have fallen apart a little bit. And I got a more precise answer because, the whole 2/3 thing.
Yeah.
Sixes that carry on forever. So, yeah. So knowing your content and understanding the why is so important for teachers. And that is true regardless of your content area. That's something I don't want to get lost in this, is that strong content knowledge matters across the board.
Yeah, and it's interesting. The other thing is sometimes I'll hear people say, they don't really need to know that. We did something else. And my response to that is, no, they probably do, because of what's coming on down the line. Right? So even when we feel like it's extra or it's not totally necessary, it is, because and you don't need to know everything that's going to be happening in algebra and geometry and beyond. Like, there's only so much everybody can do, right? And there's only so much geometry teachers can know about what happens in elementary school. But if we all do what we're told to do, and if we're really giving the kids an opportunity to think and actually learn the concepts, then that's all going to work itself out.
Absolutely. Well, Courtney, thank you so much. You packed a lot into your 22 minutes. So thank you. We still have 4 more sessions to go in our Now What Summit. So stick around. We are here until our last show or summit starts at 5. We'll end about 5:20. So stick around. We've got more content to go. So thanks so much, Courtney.
Thanks, Marty.